My name is Rachel Williams. I'm the historian here at the History Center. I'd like to welcome everyone joining us here in person as well as in our live webinar. I'll make sure to leave questions at the end of the presentation. We ask that all questions are left for the end. We do have pens and little post-it notes on the tables there, so you can write something down to remind yourself later so you don't forget. And then for those joining online, feel free to leave questions and comments in the chat, and then Cheyenne will relay those to me at the end. So to get started, by a show of hands, who here is familiar with or has shopped at Colonial Plaza? Most everyone. I see a few who have not. That's interesting. So for those that don't know, Colonial Plaza is a shopping center on East Colonial Drive between Bumby Avenue and Primrose Drive, right next to the Executive Airport. So also by a show of hands, who shopped at Colonial Plaza when it was an indoor mall? Less, but still a good number. How many people had no idea that it was an indoor mall? Still some. Awesome. Cool. In this presentation, I'll discuss the evolution of Colonial Plaza from strip mall to the first indoor mall in Central Florida, as well as its life throughout the era of malls and into the Colonial Plaza that we know today. I've based this presentation off of an article I wrote in the museum's magazine, Reflections. Most of the tables have that magazine on them. There's only one per table because those are literally our last issues of the magazine. Feel free to fight it out and take one home. But if you have already read that issue of Reflections and read that article, thank you. And if not, you totally should. I'm hoping to further bring that article to life and expand on it. And so I will also be discussing some malls near Colonial Plaza and the impact that malls have had on urban development and their changes in retail patterns. I would like to note the scope of this presentation. I will mainly focus on Colonial Plaza and its changes throughout the years, while also addressing other malls in proximity. For the sake of time, I will not be able to go into as much detail about other malls, and some malls I will not be able to get into at all. This presentation is more about Colonial Plaza's growth within Orlando and the changing mall trends, and less about the nostalgia of Orlando malls. So if your favorite mall is not mentioned, I apologize, and please do not come for me. So first, I'd like to provide some context so we know where Colonial Plaza fits into the greater history of Orlando as well as the nation. I'm not sure why this is glitching a little bit, so sorry about that. Before the development of suburban retail centers, most Floridians, like most Americans, shopped in downtown business districts along streets lined with individual shops, including businesses like clothing stores, shoe repair stores, drug stores, small grocery stores, etc. And these spread across several downtown blocks. This meant walking from store to store, often with your hands full of bags and no protection from the Florida sun or storms. For Orlando residents, the go-to shopping destination was Orange Avenue, home of the city's first department store, Yowell Duckworth, later becoming Yowell Drew, and eventually Ivy's, which first opened in the 1910s. Even as the city grew over the decades, Orlando's central business district was the place that residents and visitors went for shopping needs as well as entertainment and social activities. Just to go over this picture, this is just a photo of Orange Avenue looking south from Washington Street in the 1940s. Colonial Plaza opened in 1956, and this started to shake up the retail landscape. So when we look at this 1950s photo of the shopping center, it more closely qualifies as what we would think of today as a strip mall, as it's a row of connected stores, restaurants, and other businesses with a shared walkway and parking lot. But within its 70 years of existence, it has gone through a number of mutations before becoming the power center we know today. Colonial Plaza was planned and developed by an investment syndicate headed by Michael Sudakow. Sudakow had already developed a successful shopping plaza in St. Pete a few years earlier, and he was ready to take on a more substantial project here in Orlando. It would house 25 stores, 10 of which were meant to be specialty stores, and one major department store. Lowell Fivelent, I think is how you say his last name, who was a representative of Sudakow's, stated that, quote, Colonial Plaza is being designed and built in the light of the city's future growth. Orlando's location in the center of the state anticipates great development in the years to come, unquote. The investment group chose Orlando due to its projected growth within Florida and chose the east side of Colonial due to the projected expansion of the city. Orlando's population, and thus its geographic area, had been steadily growing since the early 1900s. To provide some context on the growth of the city of Orlando, throughout the 1920s, Orlando saw explosive population growth fueled by post-war economic affluence and the reemergence of the citrus industry, as well as a housing boom. After the end of the First World War, many Americans enjoyed a period of widespread prosperity, leading to a rise in consumerism. Automobiles became more affordable, and roadways quickly developed across the nation, making it easier to travel. The citrus industry in Florida, which previously was devastated by back-to-back freezes in 1894 and 1895, rebounded, bringing more people to the region looking to invest in orange groves. Advertising campaigns by real estate companies promoted the state of Florida, boasting its favorable climate, scenic views, and cheap land. While the land boom in the early 1920s largely focused on the development of Miami and South Florida, Orlando still benefited and saw a rise in population. Because of this new interest in the state, Orlando's population tripled between 1920 and 1930, jumping from around 9,000 to 27,000. As a result, settlement within the city expanded outwards, away from the downtown area, beginning suburban sprawl within neighborhoods such as Colonial Park, Colonial Town North, and Orwin Manor, all developing in the 1920s. This immense population growth during the decade of economic prosperity caused the city itself to change rapidly. And then I also want to note a little bit on these ads. That middle ad is I found it in the Chicago Tribune in 1926, and it promotes Orlando as, quote, a home amid orange groves and gardens in a land of eternal springtime, unquote. I don't know about springtime so much anymore, because it's a little bit harder than that. And then the ad on the right is from a Buffalo, New York newspaper advertising auction for farmland in Hardee County specifically. But these types of ads were found all over the country in newspapers, enticing people to buy land and farms in Florida. The Florida land boom saw its bust in the mid to late 1920s, leading into the National Depression. While Florida felt the effects of the Great Depression, largely evidenced by vacant suburbs and foreclosed homes, the city rebounded from economic crisis well enough, continuing to lure more people to settle into the area. During World War II, Orlando saw more growth as the city utilized its position as a central distribution point for the war effort, established military air bases, and hosted wartime manufacturing companies. This involvement in the war brought more jobs to the area, continuing Orlando's growth into the post-war era. That post-war growth brought companies like Tupperware and the Martin Company, which later became Martin Marietta and now is known as Lockheed Martin, to Orlando in the 1950s. With new companies moving into the area, more people arrived seeking better job opportunities, which further swelled residential development, causing the city to continue to expand even further outward. And then just to go over these photos, the top left is the Orlando Air Base around 1940 with the first military aircraft assigned to that base. The bottom left is a group of people inspecting a large pile of aluminum pots and containers collected for the war effort, also at the Orlando Air Base in 1941. The top right is from 1958. It's the front of the Martin Company building with a group of people out in front for Family Day. And then the bottom right is the Tupperware headquarters, RIP. To visually show the geographic expansion of the city, this is a street map of Orlando from 1909. The red outline shows the official city limits of the time, which expanded 1 mile north, south, east, and west from the central point of the city, which was located just outside of this building, outside of the courthouse. These were the original city limits from the time of Orlando's incorporation in 1875, 150 years ago, which, shameless plug to go across the hall if you haven't already and see the Orlando Collected exhibit on right now. To continue this growth, this is a 1926 map of Orlando, the red outline shows the 1926 city limits, and I've left the blue square as the the original city limits. These expanded city limits incorporate the new suburbs established in the early 1920s. You can see especially that northward expansion to include the suburbs Colonial Park, Orwin Manor, and Colonial Town North. And then this is a 1957 map of Orlando. The yellow designates the city limits as of 1957. And again, I've kept the red outline to show the 1926 limits so you can see how far east the city started to expand. The development of Colonial Plaza was a reaction to this suburban expansion, as well as a catalyst for further growth. During Colonial Plaza's groundbreaking ceremony on May 24th, 1955, Sudikow announced that his syndicate would annex the entire 20-acre tract of land, which was previously T.G. Lee cow pasture land. He would annex that into the city limits. And Orlando Mayor J. Rolfe Davis, who was in attendance, welcomed the annexation of the shopping center, stating that, quote, Colonial Plaza will, without a doubt, become one of the outstanding factors in the municipal economy. According to the Orlando Sentinel, the annexation would be the largest tract of fringe area to bring itself into the city limits in the past 20 years. To show this annexation, the black circle shows the Colonial Plaza property right next to that 1926 city limits boundary. Much like his 1954 quote mentioned earlier, Sudikow's representative Lowell Fivelant expressed upon the 1956 opening of the shopping center that, quote, the exact population center of the Orlando Winter Park area hasn't been pinpointed, but we believe it to be along Colonial Drive, somewhere east of Orange Avenue, and possibly east of Colonial Town, unquote. While Orlando city limits have been growing northward since the 1920s, with the rise of new settlers, development in the east was also on the rise, and Colonial Plaza was meant to serve that geographical area. But it is important to note that Colonial Plaza was not the first shopping area outside of downtown Orlando at the time. Small businesses and stores had opened around the greater Orlando area as the suburbs expanded away from the central business district to provide goods and services without the need to travel into the city center. These were usually small freestanding stores or a group of 2 to 3 stores within one building. Wasn't until the 1950s that shopping centers started to be developed in Orlando. For example, located just on the eastern side of Orlando's Executive Airport, approximately 3.5 miles away from what would become Colonial Plaza, was the, please don't, no, okay. The Azalea Park Shopping Center was open on Lake Barton Road, which is now known as Cimarron Boulevard. Established by Wilburn C. Phillips, who's down there in the middle bottom, and he keeps going away. The neighborhood of Azalea Park began development in the early 1950s, and in 1953, Phillips announced that a $3 million shopping center was being planned. I think it's just the slides for some reason. I don't know what's going on. I don't think it's the cord. Thank you, though. The shopping center was designed to be, quote, a huge center that will make a fully sustaining community out of Azalea Park, unquote. Early planning boasted that the completed shopping center would house 65 stores. It was planned to include a drugstore, hardware store, tailor, dry cleaners, laundrette, a cocktail lounge, restaurant, supermarket, and more. And then just to go over these photos that keep going away, the top left photo is an aerial view of Azalea Park, which you can tell looks very much like a typical suburb. The outlined area at the top right shows the space designated for the shopping center. The lower left photo shows designers of the plaza with an outline of the model, and on the top, it's kind of hard to see from here, and it keeps going away, there's numbers on top of each store. And then this lower right here is just like a blueprint of the shopping center. The Azalea Park Shopping Center officially opened on February 3rd, 1955. However, the shopping center seemed to have opened in phases because one unit was already open and functioning by Christmas of 1954, so a few months earlier than its official opening, as advertised in this 1954 advertisement. The ad claims that 2 other units would be under construction shortly. However, I couldn't find any evidence of those additional units coming into fruition. And that could be due to the fact that in October 1956, Welborn Phillips sold the shopping center an additional property in the area to Food Fair Properties, which was one of the largest supermarket chains in the nation at the time. Promotional advertisements for the shopping center boasted covered walkways, air-conditioned stores, and ample parking facilities. In 1955, the grand opening event hosted a boat show, dance party, children's rides, and a raffle for a new Plymouth car to get locals excited about the new establishment. Approximately 8,500 people were in attendance. Of the 65 planned stores, only 16 were open at the grand opening, and the department store originally planned never came into existence. There were other shopping centers in Orlando at the time as well. For example, the Western Way Shopping Center on West Colonial Drive was also opened in 1955 and is nearly equidistant from downtown Orlando as Colonial Plaza is, but to the west side. However, the fanfare and success of Colonial Plaza relies on its size and marketing, as well as its ability to adjust to business trends. When Colonial Plaza opened on January 31st, 1956, Central Floridians came out in droves to see the modern shopping destination. The Orlando Sentinel advertised the grand opening with this spread, where it states, "The one-stop shopping center of tomorrow that's here today." And it features spaceships instead of cars. Today we might think of a shopping center like this to be very commonplace, but in the 1950s, in Orlando especially, it was mostly a new concept. The Orlando Sentinel promoted this new shopping center by detailing its modern amenities, such as covered walkways, stating that shoppers will find that they can easily go from one store to another without ever getting in the weather. This was a new appealing feature since stores downtown were only partially covered on sidewalks as awnings were separated by individual buildings, and the urban nature of navigating the city streets often meant being exposed to the elements while shopping. You can see here in this photo, the overhangs are all separated, leaving gaps in between, so you might get a little bit of rain and some sun. But of course, when you start crossing the streets as well, there's no awnings there. So you're kind of always out in the rain if it's raining, which it does a lot here. So Colonial Plaza offered continuous protection from the elements when shopping. Air conditioning was also a big marketing point for Colonial Plaza. While air conditioning in businesses wasn't completely uncommon in the mid-1950s, between 2 to 4% of homes in the US had air conditioning, and the vast majority of that was usually one singular window unit, so no central AC really. Of course, the percentage of homes in Florida with AC was likely higher than the rest of the nation just because of our higher temperature and our longer warm season. But to be considered a modern establishment, the shopping center had to have air conditioning to ensure comfortable shopping experiences for its customers. The newspaper also emphasized the use of mercury vapor lamps in the parking lot to provide daylight lighting, so nighttime shoppers can clearly find their cars in the expansive parking lot when the shops closed at 9 p.m. And on that note, parking space was a huge selling point. Colonial Plaza boasted 2,000 free parking spaces. You might be thinking most parking spaces are free, but that's not really the case at this time. You can see in this 1954 rendering, the plaza had a lot of parking space. The parking center was designed with a parking area 3 times larger than the shopping area, and at the time that was mostly unheard of, but something that's actually quite common these days. The massive amount of free parking was a big deal for Central Florida shoppers at the time. With the ever-expanding growth of the city, meant more cars on the roads and more cars going downtown for their shopping needs, and thus creating the need for more parking space. Before the establishment of parking plazas, the large amount of people driving their cars from all over Orange County to get to downtown Orlando created a significant parking problem. This issue had been developing since the 1920s with that huge boom in population, and it had only gotten worse in the 1950s, and surprise, it's 2025, and parking and traffic still isn't great. As I previously mentioned, Orlando's population had tripled between 1920 and 1930, bringing tens of thousands of new people to the area, many of them in cars. Although neighborhoods were developing and spreading outwards, the majority of businesses were in the central business district. Before parking garages littered the downtown landscape, on-street parking was the only option and would become difficult to come by as more people filtered into the downtown area, causing more cars to drive around searching for an open spot, thus worsening traffic. As early as 1923, Orlando established a 1-hour parking ordinance in an attempt to alleviate the parking problem. The city faced issues with people disregarding the ordinance, not paying parking tickets, and then not showing up for court dates for their unpaid citations. A 1923 article in the Orlando Morning Sentinel begged the question, quote, "How is a city going to regulate the increasingly heavy flow of automotive traffic, enforce the time limit parking ordinance leniently so as to not drive shoppers away from Orlando, provide space for professional men, clear space for business houses and hotels to cater to their customers and guests, give the for-hire cars a chance to operate as we have no trolleys, and to keep everyone fairly well satisfied?" Again, it's 2025, and I feel like we're still kind of asking those questions. In 1935, Oklahoma City first implemented parking meters to help quick turnover for parking spaces, and Orlando City Council was immediately interested in the solution and sought to follow suit. However, it wouldn't be until March of 1939 that a 6-month trial period was implemented for 150 parking meters to be placed in high traffic areas along Orange Avenue, Church Street, and Central Avenue. Parking in a metered spot would cost a nickel for an hour. And quick math, 5 cents in 1923 has the same buying power as $1.15 today. This was met with a lot of backlash, largely from downtown merchants, so much so that 60 merchants signed a petition in opposition to the meters, fearing that the meters would drive business away from their shops, but they were also upset that they themselves couldn't park outside of their shops without paying. In fact, businesses located outside of the range of the parking meters started to advertise that their stores had free parking. Merchants weren't the only ones upset with the parking meters. While some Orlandoans were reported to like the implementation, saying that it did help turn over parking spaces more quickly, others protested the installations by jamming sticky candy and jelly beans into the coin slots. By October of 1939, Orlandoans voted parking meters out of downtown, leaving the city council to figure out new ways to alleviate traffic and parking, such as making streets like Orange Avenue and Main Street, which is now Magnolia Avenue, one-way streets, which was instituted in 1941. And now they're thinking about making them two-way streets again. In 1950, the city of Orlando created a parking commission to deal with the never-ending parking issues. The committee reinstated parking meters and began looking into property to open municipal parking lots in the downtown area, which would also be metered. The first city-owned parking lot downtown opened in March of 1955, nearly a year before Colonial Plaza opened. And guess who was on the parking committee advocating for metered parking at downtown lots? Wilburn C. Phillips, the guy that developed Azalea Park and the shopping center where parking was free. I could do an very in-depth lunch and learn on parking in Orlando alone. So if you want that, let me know. If not, I understand, because it's parking. But anyway, back on track. Colonial Plaza opens January 31st, 1956, with a total of 25 stores. 2 grocery stores, a Publix, and an A&P. I don't know why you need 2 grocery stores in the same exact plaza, but I digress. There's 2 variety stores, a W.T. Grant and a McCrory's, along with other smaller stores and businesses such as retail stores, a dry cleaner, shoe repair, TV appliance repair, etc. There's also a Walgreens, which was relocated from its downtown location. Here you can see how close the shopping center was to residential areas. Right across the street, there's also some in the background there, and then over in the corner is the executive airport. But you can also see the parking lot in comparison to the shopping space. It's very large and very packed. And of course, there was also the iconic Ronnie's, which many longtime Orlandoans love to reminisce over. But the restaurant didn't open until a few weeks after the shopping center officially opened. Colonial Plaza's grand opening was a smash hit. An estimated 150,000 people showed up, wanting to get a peek of the modern showcase of the future of shopping. This was way more than the 2,000 parking spaces could handle. The sheer amount of people congested surrounding roadways from 9 a.m. until closing time 12 hours later. Parking spilled out into the side streets and nearby vacant properties. More than 20 policemen were tasked with controlling traffic and assisting pedestrians crossing the busy streets just to get to the shopping center. And lines formed outside of businesses such as Walgreens as people tried to dine at their lunch counter. The fire department was also called to ensure that the maximum occupancy was not exceeded. The grand opening was a big event. Not only were people coming to see the new shopping center and take advantage of special grand opening deals, but there were also raffles for TVs, cars, diamond rings, and gift certificates. There were also plenty of freebies, such as candy, balloons, donuts, salt and pepper shakers, plastic clothes hangers, and packaged lunch meat, which I thought was interesting. Orlando dignitaries were also in attendance, such as Mayor J. Ralph Davis, who did the honors of the ribbon cutting ceremony, and that ribbon was over 1,000 feet long. The Belk's department store, which was separated from the main strip of stores, opened on March 7th, so just a little over a month after the plaza's grand opening. The two-story department store was the largest in Orlando at the time at 75,000 square feet and included the city's first escalator. But apparently it could only go up. It wasn't like it was just one escalator up. You had to take the stairs down. Colonial Plaza was a popular shopping destination throughout the remainder of the 1950s, as was downtown Orlando. Although there was no sudden decline in downtown shopping with the rise of the popularity of suburban shopping centers, there was some hesitation that a shift away from the central business districts would come. One Orlando Sentinel article at the time stated, quote, if downtown shopping districts are going to compete with suburban shopping centers in the populous decades in the future, revolutionary changes in parking lots, transportation facilities, and municipal planning will be necessary, unquote. In 1958, the news of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Toledo, Ohio converting portions of their downtown districts into pedestrian outdoor malls, Orlando Council began contemplating the possibility of a pedestrian shopping mall on Gertrude Street. This would have required the removal and relocation of the train tracks along Gertrude, and therefore never really came to be. By the end of the 1950s, the concept of the shopping mall started to buzz across the country. The first modern shopping mall in the U.S. opened in October of 1956, the same year as Colonial Plaza, in Edina, Minnesota, called Southdale Center. I say modern shopping mall because the concept of malls goes back to shopping markets of ancient times as a series of stores arranged together like in a marketplace, and we can even think of European arcades dating back to the 17th centuries as malls as well. But in a modern sense, a mall is considered to be an enclosed, climate-controlled building containing a series of shops linked together by concourses and central gathering areas. The concept of the modern shopping mall was designed by Victor Gruen, an Austrian architect who sought to bring urban amenities to suburban areas. As previously discussed, the rapid post-war suburbanization of America was largely instigated by the accessibility and popularity of automobiles. Gruen sought to prioritize pedestrians over automobiles in his designs, allowing people to shop, run errands, and socialize without the hassle of driving downtown. In theory, Gruen's vision was to have the suburban neighborhoods built to accompany the mall, with apartment buildings, houses, schools, and parks surrounding a central mall as a sort of marketplace with sidewalks and shaded landscaping to create a walkable environment, reducing the need for cars. His vision would be the precursor for the new urbanism movement. With this national rise and popularity of modern shopping malls across the nation, Colonial Plaza needed to keep up. In 1961, news of a Colonial Plaza expansion hit the papers, promoting the new anchor store, Jordan Marsh. The expansion would extend backwards from the original strip of stores, ending at the Jordan Marsh store. This new department store would be 4 stories high, each floor accessible by an escalator, both ways escalator. The concourse connecting the original strip to the new Jordan Marsh would include 30 new stores and be fully enclosed and air-conditioned. With the mall now housing a total of 57 stores, the parking lot also expanded from 2,000 spaces to 15,000, wrapping around the entire building. The expansion had its grand reopening on October 22nd, 1962, although this one did not cause an all-day traffic jam. Additional entrances were opened along Colonial, Bumby, and Primrose to ease the flow into and out of the mall's parking lot. Although traffic had improved, there were still thousands in attendance, filling the massive parking lot and leaving many shoppers still circling, looking for parking. I don't have a photo from the opening, but in this photo you can see how big the parking lot was, and still the continuous growth for like residential. You can see on the other side as well how central this is to the residential area. At around 600 square feet, Colonial Plaza became the largest shopping mall south of Atlanta. And I would like to correct something that I wrote in my article. So I stated in that article that Colonial Plaza was the first air-conditioned enclosed mall in Florida. While the Orlando Sentinel did boast this title for Colonial Plaza, upon further research, I found that only a week before Colonial Plaza's grand reopening, Coral Ridge Mall in Fort Lauderdale opened, which was a fully enclosed, air-conditioned mall. So Colonial Plaza is technically the second air-conditioned enclosed mall in Florida, but second only by a week. In July of 1962, a few months before the grand reopening, it was announced that a theater would be added to the Colonial Plaza property on the Bumby side of the block. The theater was in partnership with both the Sudakow Association and Louis J. Finsk, the president of Florida State Theaters, which also operated the Beecham Theater downtown and the Colony Theater in Winter Park. The Plaza Theater, now known as Plaza Live, opened in November of 1963 and was Orlando's first 2-screen theater. One of the auditoriums could seat 800 people, and the other could seat 300. The theater featured rocking seats for ultimate comfort, and because of this, locals started referring to the Plaza Theater as the Rocking Chair Theater. Colonial Plaza's persistent expansion through the addition of new stores, services, and amenities proved to be successful and slowly inspired further retail development throughout Greater Orlando. One such development was a new Sears store. In 1962, not long before the grand reopening of Colonial Plaza's expansion, Sears purchased land on Colonial Drive, about a mile east of Colonial Plaza. There had been a Sears store in downtown Orlando on Orange Avenue since 1931, but considering the success of Colonial Plaza with its proximity to the eastern suburbs, Sears wanted to reach more customers. The new freestanding department store would open on October 30th, 1963. The downtown location would continue operating in the meantime, but would later close in 1974. Now, as many of you may know, the Sears store would later become part of Fashion Square Mall, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. The Greater Orlando area's second enclosed mall came in August 1964 when Winter Park Mall opened on North Orlando Avenue between Canton and Webster. Similar to downtown Orlando, most shopping in Winter Park was done in the downtown district off of Park Avenue until this mall was constructed. The mall housed 41 stores, including 2 anchor stores, a 2-story Ivy's and a 2-story JCPenney's, which was the second largest JCPenney's in the nation at the time, and the very first JCPenney's new generation stores, which included an expanded selection of merchandise. Other stores at the mall included a Rutland's, Walgreens, a laundromat, a bookstore, optometrist, a Bill Bear appliance store, clothing and shoe stores, and a Winn-Dixie, among others. The parking lot had 3,000 free parking spaces. In doing research, I've seen a number of publications stating that Winter Park Mall was Orlando's first enclosed mall, which is not true. Again, because Colonial Plaza's enclosed expansion opened in 1962. There's also claims that the Winter Park Mall was the largest air-conditioned store mall in the Southeast, which was also not true. The Winter Park Mall was 528,000 square feet. Numbers are hard. In comparison to Colonial Plaza's 600,000 square feet. However, the argument could be made that Winter Park Mall was the first entirely enclosed mall, as Colonial Plaza had more of a hybrid design due to its nature of expansion, but I digress. On April 6th, 1969, just before dawn, a fire broke out at the Winter Park Mall, destroying 11 stores and causing the roof over the central concourse to collapse. Despite the damage, the mall remained open, except for the affected stores, so people could just come in where there was a fire. The Orlando Evening Sentinel reported that the fire was, at the time, the costliest in metropolitan Orlando's history, costing an estimated $4 to $6 million. The destroyed portion of the mall was rebuilt and reopened 4 months later, and the cause of the fire was never determined. And here you can see that shaded portion is the quarter that was destroyed by the fire, and then that central concourse roof collapse. In May of 1972, it was announced that Colonial Plaza would once again be expanding, this time with a new concourse expanding back from the 1962 Jordan Marsh section and would end at a new, larger Belk department store. The old Belk store that was separated from the rest of the mall, the original strip of mall stores, would become an O.G. Wilson store. The existing mall space from the 1962 addition would be renovated to stay on trend with modern interior styles of shopping malls. The expansion opened on October 15th, 1973. The new Colonial Plaza would include more than 100 stores, and the total square footage would be nearly 1 million. And this is a blueprint, or diagram, I guess, of the 1973 expansion, which was published in the Orlando Sentinel, and also an interior photo of one of the concourses. A few months before the Colonial Plaza extension opened, another new mall opened just down Colonial Drive, Fashion Square Mall. The new shopping destination was announced in 1971, the same year as Disney's Magic Kingdom opened, and would be built to adjoin the freestanding Sears that opened in 1963. Other anchor stores would include Burdines and Robinsons of Florida. The developer of the mall, Leonard Farber, opened nearly 30 malls across the country, including one of similar design in Pompano Beach, also called Fashion Square, which is how Orlando Fashion Square got its name. The Orlando Fashion Square Mall was planned to be 820,000 square feet. Wait, am I saying? I'm bad with numbers, you guys. 820,000 square feet. There's a reason why I'm a historian, not a math person. It would have 100 stores and 5,000 parking spaces. Originally planned for a fall debut, Farber pushed the opening day forward to July 30th, 1973. However, only the Burdines and about 25 other stores were open for business. On opening day, shoppers shared the halls with workmen carrying tools and building materials while music was drowned out by the sound of construction. I couldn't find any reports on this, but my guess is that Farber wanted to hold the grand opening of Fashion Square months before the opening of Colonial Plaza's expansion, even if it meant the mall was nowhere near finished. The rest of Fashion Square Mall would open in October, around 2 days before the Colonial Plaza reopening. If you thought Colonial Plaza was finished evolving, you're wrong. In 1983, the Monster Mall would go through yet another expansion, this time adding an Ivys department store at the front of the original strip of malls. During construction, renovations throughout the mall, again, were completed to keep up with interior styles of newer malls. By the end of the 1980s, Central Florida was home to 10 enclosed shopping malls, commonly referred to as Orlando's oldest shopping mall. Colonial Plaza had to keep up and not look like the oldest shopping mall. This is a very handy little map of Colonial Plaza that someone made and posted to Wikipedia. It shows each iteration of the shopping center. Please stay. The blue is the original strip of stores, including the separate original Belk store over in the top corner. The red is the 1962 expansion with the addition of a concourse in the Jordan Marsh. The purple is the 1973 expansion with another concourse leading to the Belk store, and then the orange shows the 1983 Ivy store. So at this point, you can kind of see a trend that each decade of its existence, Colonial Plaza had gone under some kind of transformation and become this hybrid mutant mall. This dynamic ability to constantly shift with national shopping trends allowed Colonial Plaza to remain relevant much longer than other strip shopping malls in the 1950s. But its biggest transformation would come in the 1990s with demolition. The 1990s showed early signs of decline for shopping malls across the country, especially older shopping malls. Factors for the early decline among shopping malls include the rise of the internet, of course. Today it's extremely prevalent. I think all of us do online shopping, but online shopping really got its very early start in the mid-90s, though it wouldn't have a big impact until later, into the late 2000s and the 2010s. Second, there were just too many malls. When malls were too close together, such as Colonial Plaza and Fashion Square, they would tend to cannibalize each other, usually leaving the newer malls beating out the older malls, thus creating stiff competition and a need to constantly remodel and update to be deemed relevant, such as Colonial Plaza. Lastly, there was the fall of department stores and the shift towards more budget-friendly big stores. So shoppers began preferring to shop at places like Target, Kohl's, Marshall's, things like that, rather than the perceived upscale department stores. So when malls' anchor stores fail, the rest soon follow. And that's what happened at Colonial Plaza. A series of corporate mergers would affect department stores in the early 1990s. One such merger caused the Ivys at Colonial Plaza, really all Ivys, to become Dillard's in 1990. And that Dillard's would also close 3 years later. In the early corporate mergers and consolidation also closed the stores of the Jordan Marsh in 1991. In the early 90s, Colonial Plaza had about a 50% vacancy rate. With the competition nearby at Fashion Square, changes in shopping trends, expensive upkeep, and corporate struggle among department stores, Colonial Plaza could not keep up its dated hybrid state. In 1994, Cousins Newmarket, an Atlanta-based developer, announced that it would buy Colonial Plaza and demolish most of it to develop a new kind of shopping establishment known as a power center. Now, a power center is basically an outdoor mall with mostly major, big box stores mixed with smaller shops and restaurants stretched across vast parking lots, like Waterford Lakes Town Center shown here. Rather than walking store to store inside a concourse, shoppers park next to the stores they wish to visit, then usually drive across the huge parking lot to the next store they wish to visit. And here we've come back full circle to being a car-dependent society. For example, here's a map of Waterford Lakes, which opened in 1999. Say you wanted to go from Target to Best Buy. You'll have to go from one end of the shopping center to the other. So if you want to walk, which is kind of like the outline I made in blue, you're walking through parking lots and partially across the main entry road, which is between those two little lakes. And most of this doesn't have a sidewalk. So power centers were really made to navigate by car, not on foot like in malls. In contrast, this is the Florida Mall, which opened in 1986. To get from one end to another, you simply walk through the main concourse. And that's what those are designed for. The concourses are designed to get from one anchor to another, all on foot, all inside, where there's no rain. So the power center format is really the antithesis of Victor Gruen's original vision of a shopping mall. Even his initial Southdale mall didn't live up to his vision of a central marketplace surrounded by efficient housing and a walkable environment. Instead, malls stood as destinations accessible only by cars, surrounded by vast parking lots and the highways it takes to get there, with the suburbs sprawling in the distance. In 1978, during the height of the mall craze, Gruen gave a speech in London in which he expressed that his vision of the mall had been disfigured by, quote, the ugliness and discomfort of land-wasting seas of parking, unquote. He went on to renounce his influence of the creation of malls, stating, quote, I refuse to pay alimony for those bastard developments. They destroyed our cities, unquote. It is worth noting that Gruen's urban planning ideas, specifically his 1964 book titled The Heart of Our Cities, The Urban Crisis, Diagnosis, and Cure, inspired something very close to home here in Orlando. Walt Disney's original concept of the Epcot planned community. Of course, the original concept never came to be, but the Epcot theme park and the community of celebration did spiral from Disney's original Epcot plan. Both the theme park and the community include elements of Gruen's visions for an ideal society, although I'm not sure he'd approve, especially considering how his views on malls turned out, but I digress. But here you can see like the idea on the cover of the book really kind of supplanted with Walt Disney, so I thought that was neat. Anyway, in 1995, Colonial Plaza was mostly demolished, leaving only a small portion of the original 1956 strip and the 1973 Belk store. In this map, published, the little central map, published in the Orlando Sentinel in 1984, you can see the dashed outline where the hybrid mall once stood with the plan for the new power center. And again, only a small portion of that mall remains today. And then the other photos on the left is the construction process of the new power center, and on the right is them taking down Ronnie's sign, which upset a lot of Orlandoans. Colonial Plaza remains in this power center format today. While not as popular as it may have been in the 60s and 70s, Colonial Plaza remains a frequent stop for many shoppers in the nearby neighborhoods. Also, this map is not up to date. This just shows the layout, not necessarily the current tenants. The Winter Park Mall followed in Colonial Plaza's footsteps, words are hard, when in 1997 it was announced that the mall would be demolished and rebuilt into a shopping center now called Winter Park Village. The new shopping center would be anchored by a 20-screen Regal Cinema, which is still a very popular destination today. Even last year, Winter Park Village was revamped to include more of a mixed-use lifestyle center. In comparison, Fashion Square Mall has fallen into obsolescence and commonly referred to today as a dead mall, leaving its owners struggling to figure out what to do with the space, an issue that many mall owners face today. There have been many plans for the redevelopment of Fashion Square over the past 10 to 15 years, but nothing has ever come to fruition. Most recently, in the last week even, the Orlando Sentinel reported that a new plan is in the works to reduce some of the retail space, add residential space, and incorporate more lifestyle space with the addition of a grocery store and potentially the largest gym in Central Florida. Although there are these plans for redevelopment of the mall, there's no actual timeline for anything to happen at this point. In 2022, news came out that the current owner of Colonial Plaza, Kimco Realty Corporation, was considering potentially redeveloping once again, this time turning portions of the center into mixed-use residential spaces. According to the proposal, plans would reduce asphalt and add more greenery through landscaping and the addition of a public park. These plans would eliminate the remaining pieces of the 1956 original strip and the 1973 Belk edition. However, as of today, there hasn't been any further mention of these plans, and there's no public timeline for redevelopment. as I mentioned, a small portion of the mall still exists within today's Power Center. The current Barnes & Noble and Petco are the only remaining pieces from the original 1956 strip. Of course, the facades have been updated, so it looks completely unrecognizable, and you would never know that the structure is from the 1950s. The current Marshalls and the recently closed Conn's furniture store are part of what was the 1973 Belk store. This is the backside of the stores, and you can tell that like that little slopey thing used to be doors. It was the south entrance of the Belk. There's also the current Total Wine in that building operates within the original 1956 Belk store. And then there's also a Goodyear Service Center, which opened in the 1960s, kind of a little bit after that 1962 expansion, and that still exists today. So, who knew so much history could be behind a seemingly everyday shopping center? Colonial Plaza represents more than a simple shopping center. It's emblematic of the mid-century suburbanization and the evolution of the American retail economy. It showcased the shift from downtown shopping districts to suburban centers for automobile convenience. Its rise and transformation reflect broader economic, social, and urban development trends that shaped Orlando, as well as other cities across the nation. While Colonial Plaza may lack its grandeur it once held, the legacy as Central Florida's first major shopping center remains a significant chapter in the history of Orlando's growth and consumer culture. So, after all that yapping, does anyone have any questions? When did Azalea Park Mall close? I don't think it officially closed. It's technically not a mall. The Azalea Park is more of a shop, like a strip mall, kind of like the original Colonial Plaza was, just much smaller. And I don't think it closed. I think it still operates, but I don't think it has as many stores. It's not in the same like category, I guess, as what you would consider Colonial Plaza today. Any other questions? Okay, I'm just gonna reiterate her question, so go ahead. So for the listeners online, she was just talking about in the most recent Orlando Sentinel article about Fashion Square, the owners of the lease, which I guess it doesn't say in the article, own the property until 2074, you said? So that's kind of why redevelopment is taking so long, I guess. Yeah, so, and then this comment was that there's someone that owns the land, someone that owns the property, like the building itself, so there's a lot that gets tied into it that's confusing, whereas, you know, with Colonial Plaza, Sudikow owned the property, he bought the property and the building, so it was a lot easier to do that kind of stuff, whereas now things are a lot more complicated. Right, so that comment was for online listeners about the way that department stores would own their own stores and how that worked within a mall. It's very complicated and it's changed a lot over the years. I could get into that even further. Honestly, I have plans to make this into an academic paper that could also probably be a PhD dissertation. But you know, for the sake of time, I couldn't get into all like the nitty-gritty details of all that kind of stuff. There's also like the reason for why there were so many malls because of like a 1954 Senate bill that allowed devaluation on property like that, on assets. So a lot of people can make a lot of money on malls, which is why it heightened so much. So there's a lot of other really fascinating information. But again, because of time, I couldn't yap at you guys for like 3 hours. So yeah. Any other questions? All right. So with that, thank you for joining us today and putting up with the screen being weird. We hope that you enjoyed the program. Supporting our programs is one of the best ways that you can support the museum. So we appreciate you being here today. If you want to learn more about how you can support us and get involved, you can take a look at what we have going on at our website, thehistorycenter.org.